Hey everyone, and welcome to Brad the DM. In my new basement-based studio for at least this project and probably other things, because D&D is really more authentic in the basement. And to be completely honest, with the new format that I'm going to try, because these are mostly like outlines, I have everything in a PowerPoint presentation, basically. Just to show the ins and outs of, my sessions, my thoughts and ideas, as well as my personal and DM notes, for like certain things that come up, in case, if you guys have questions or, concerns about how I'm running these sessions. But, yeah, today's episode is episode number 8, Exit Pursued by Owlbear. Well, there's another part to it, but I forget what it's called. But yeah, so basically, just to set the stage really quick before I get into the highlights and presentation and yada yada, there is a performance on the Row stage, one of the sites on the campus where basically small theatrical performances are going on. This presentation is basically just a larger improv show that's just meant to bring the campus together, have a bit of fun. Maybe raise some funds for something or whatever. I don't know. Like, whatever you want to put into the story, you can. They left it pretty open in the book. But basically, whether or not your party decides to get involved, things, of course, go down once more. And if my session is any indication, it can be a bit tough for for a group of, I believe we're level 3 or 4 right now. But yeah, and I'm glad I had every character because things get a bit dicey and one person almost, well, is not around, but 1 point of health saved them. But enough about me just talking about it. Let's actually get into the session so then you all can see what I ran into, my thoughts and ideas, and my creative use of imagery and such. So yeah, players, are you ready for Brad the DM presents Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, session number 8, Exit Pursued by Owlbear. Alright everybody, as I've established, Brad the DM, Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, session number 8, Exit Pursued by Owlbear. Basically, I just arbitrarily set this up on, Monday afternoon. The students are in class, and the professor is talking about the Row Stage Festival. Don't forget, students. Don't forget about the Row Stage Festival, students. Always a fun time and excellent for bonding opportunities for those looking to make more friends. Also, I will offer extra credit to those involved. I will be one of the staff overseeing the event. I believe the professor I chose for this was Viralda Lang. She's a character who comes up later in the chapter anyway. May have forgotten to mention that here specifically. And then just a quick DM note at the bottom. I figured the extra credit is a nice incentive for those who may not want to take part. The show does have plot relevance, but could be ignored also if no one wants to take part. You just hear about the events that happen afterwards. Or if you're in the investigative types, maybe you go before the show to investigate things, and there's a whole nother potential session for you to go through with that idea. I did not outline that, I'm just establishing that right now, because I figured if I will later. But anyway, moving on to the next part. Sorry, my mouse is being a bit finicky sometimes. Alright, excited to take part. Basically, just based on my personal team, wanted to show some excitement for taking part in the event. Burgle and Kimo looked to one another grinning. Oh my gosh, I forgot about the festival, the Rose Festival, this should be great! Sarah looked at Darb, and the two nodded, trying to slowly sneak away before Burgle and Kimo looked their way. This is just a bit of fun. Give me a Dex stealth check. Darb rolled an 18 plus his 3, giving him a 21, pass. Sarah rolled an 8 minus 1, 7, so fail. Basically, you know, for some of these things, they say 5 is for something that should be relatively easy, 10 is something that's a bit challenging, and then 15 is like, it's on the harder scale, you know, easy, normal, hard for skill checks. So just a bearing for if you make your own skill checks, like I did. You know, anyway, Darb was close to the aisle, so he was able to sneak off. Sarah, unfortunately, was not so lucky. Kima turned around. Hey, you're gonna make it to festival, right, Sarah? Trying to work on a Kima voice. Sarah paused mid-step. Yes, of course. I'll remind Javenish and Darb too. You know, those two love the performing arts. You know, Darb was near the door to the classroom and looked back. Sarah just smirking at him before he ducked out of the room. You know, the cliche, oh, you guys are still on the hook for this no matter what. Sorry. Burgle told Kima about Sarah's performance at orientation, you know, her recital of Shakespeare. Basically, if you don't remember the first episode, it's that classic speech from, I think it's Macbeth. You know, oh, poor Yorick, alas, I knew ye, etc., etc. It's a cliche, classy thing that people know of, and a lot of people make reference to. Also, I'm really hoping he can't sue me, or his estate, or whatever, you know. But yeah, Kima wasn't familiar and asked Sarah about what she knew of, you know, Shakespeare's work. But we'll change the name in post in the actual campaign, so can't sue technically. Billy Shake Sword. I don't know. Trying to improv too. Also, that's why this is not going to be heavily edited, because a lot of D&D is improv with the party at the table. You gotta be quick on your feet, and it's definitely something that I have to work on. But moving forward, honestly, I didn't have much else, so I just moved right on to the, you know, the performance itself. And really quick, before every scene, like before, I'm going to establish all of the relevant characters. Basically, you know, from left to right, you've got pictured Aurora Luna Winterstar. She's a Damphir, part vampire. Cadoris de Meloir, he's either an elf or a half-elf. Drasimir Yarnask, who is, I want to say Minotaur, because I don't think Tauren, that's from World of Warcraft. Javenish Stoutclaw is an Owlin. Quintilius Antifian Melantor III is human, and Rosie Miffin Rosie was Fedlims is Gnome. Really quick, you know, these are just the characters that they have specifically in the book that I looked at, and based on the profiles within the book, I said, okay, these people would be there. Because one of the important things that I picked up around session 2 or 3 was you need to have actual people in the scenes. And, you know, these were my people from the book that fit this category. And honestly, going forward, like, there may be variations on these characters in the various campaigns, like Waterdeep, Vecna, Eve of Ruin. I know I got a bunch, but yeah, you get the point. And then really quick, I'm just establishing their motives. Aurora is going to put on a musical performance. Basically, in her bio, she does performances at the Fire Jolt Cafe. So, hey, you know, performance, get her name out there, become a famous bard / musician, etc., etc. Cadoris de Meloir, he's part of the role-playing society. So basically, they might be putting on some sort of stage performance. Who knows? Drasimir Yarnask, backstage script supervisor. He's a bookish, you know, library type, so he doesn't want to be on stage, but he does appreciate the theater. I said it with a fancy inflection if you didn't hear it. So yeah, that's why he's there. Javenish Stoutclaw, backstage props. Basically, in the past, I've established him as kind of a shy, awkward, loner type of character. You know, you may draw some parallels to a certain DM. Goes by the. But yeah, it's like he's there because he wants to help out and, like, you know, do his part and potentially make some friends. I worked backstage. I had fun with it. I liked it. I'm trying to graduate to DM status in the D&D world. Then we have Quintilius Antivian Melantor III. He's basically, you know, one of the major actors leading and directing, you know, on stage and off. Because he knows, you know, it's good to get involved on the stage, but also, you know, he wants to help out his fellow thespians flourish and grow and, melt into their parts. And then Rosie Miffidbit, Rosie was Fedlims. She's backstage tech. She's a gnome. I'm being a bit cliche, I will be honest, but it fits her. She's part of the role-playing society, so maybe she's got some, mech suit setup that she's going to do for this. I don't know. Again, it'll play NPCs in the crowd. Basically, these are people who weren't taking part in the show, in my personal opinion, but still showed up for some reason. And honestly, I think I covered basically all of the NPCs from left to right, and I'll do this in a better format. Grayson Wildemere, human reporter for the Strixhaven Star. Basically, he's just here to review the show. Simple as that. He does appreciate the arts, but, the Rose Stage Festival, it's an improv show, it's just not entirely his scene, as my interpretation of his character. It may vary, my character interpretations may vary, depending on the campaign. Greta Goron, Moral Sports. She's the character who has been dating Burgle, for some time. She's part of the Iron Lifter Society with Darb, so she's also supporting him, but she definitely she likes to see her little badger, on the stage and wants to support him. So he's been to a lot of her events, so it's only fair. Then we have Lorene Arneza. She's the ticket taker. Basically, takes tickets at the booth. I didn't have much else to say. That is actually her job on campus, so that's why we're doing that. Mina Lee. She is with Grayson. Basically, I've kind of shipped them because they both work for the Strixhaven Star. She is a year older than him, and, I don't know, just something works with them, in my opinion. You can write characters however you want. In the bottom left, we have Nora and Wu. Morals. Basically, she's just there for moral support. She's like one of the, I want to say, RAs or floor advisors for the university. So, she helps out people who are feeling, awkward and like they don't fit in, and, etc. And people who are homesick, too. So she's there for a noble purpose. Rubino Larkingdale. Basically, she's a major player with music and composing and such. So she's here because, she got the chance to be the band conductor for the year. Or for at least part of the show, or something. She's, by year 3 or 4, she will be a major conductor. Right now, this is her chance to get in that. Because that's what it says in the book. But she is, as far as I recall, either a year 1 or year 2 student. And then we have Erzmitak Grosh. Basically, he's moral support for the party. Also, he's kind of our, Q inventor, alchemist, potions behind the scenes guy for any weird stuff going on. And then we have Xanther Bowen. Again, he's moral support. Basically, he's part of the cheer squad, and, he has some friends that might be taking part in the show. He isn't part of the show for some reason. I feel like he could go either way. Either in the crowd or in the show. It wouldn't be too big an issue. Moving on to, the player characters. What are they doing? The party. Darb and Sarah are going to be working backstage. Props and sound effects. Basically, Darb doesn't feel comfortable on stage. He doesn't have a high charisma score. I don't know the exact number, but just trust me on that one. And then Sarah's, working backstage as well because, yeah, she thinks it's good to have eyes on the back stage area just in case some more craziness comes up, because it's happened again and again so far. Kima and Burgle will be on stage performing. Kima will be doing a martial arts presentation with one of the other martial arts students. Not from the Path of the Ascendant Dragon School, but another school. Basically just some good stage combat, stuff like that. Burgle will be performing in a skit/scene. Basically, some people are like, oh my gosh, we could use you for this part in this scene. Come on, you have to do it with us. And, Burgle, being a bit susceptible to peer pressure, decided to join in. Quick DM note, potentially describe some scenes, and if the party wants to join in, let them. The book does have, I want to say it's 4 to 5 quick scenes that you can like roll a d10 for. But you know, if people have their own ideas, let them do their thing. And then really quick, just pictured on the right side is the road stage itself. I didn't go through all the locations because I just focused on what I used. And also I gotta leave some mystery for what is in the book. So that people, you know, support the official release. I know some people have their issues with Wizards, and that's fair. I started this before that came up, and I want to finish it. Alright, moving on to just some session notes during the show. Basically, there are 4 things that people can do in relation to the show if they are in attendance. Perform on stage. There are a couple of prompts on page 90. Pick one, make one up, do whatever you feel like. A DC 13 Charisma performance check will be made for this. Basically, regardless, you can keep trying, and then highest score can get a rare item. Don't really have much thoughts on like how to run that, besides like if someone, you know, does roll 2, maybe like I think a 3-shot system will work. So like you get 3 tries. You know, if you fail the first one, you know, we'll call it there. And that's what we'll call any NPC players who take parts. If somebody wants to do 2, we'll do 2 rolls. You know, etc., etc. Basically, it will go based on how the players decide to do this. Is what I want to do. You know, the highest score gets a rare item. If I recall right, it is a Cloak of Protection. Basically, an item that gives you +1 to AC. So, has some value, but it's not crazy powerful. I might establish that with the party beforehand, just so they know, so they're not like breaking their backs over this. Like, the main thing is we have fun with it. But yeah. The second thing they can do is handle props. Again, backstage work. That is what Dar will be doing. Basically, you're going to make a DC 13 Wisdom Insight check. And if you pass it, you gave off the right props to the right people. If you didn't, well, you'll mess up. And spoilers, we'll get to see that in a couple of minutes. Accompanied with the kazoo. Yes, for some reason kazoos are involved with this. But you make a DC 13 performance check, and if you pass, you give an actor advantage. I don't know how it works either. Maybe we'll just change it to, you know, encourage an actor. Crap. Give advantage to somebody. Heckle an actor. Give them disadvantage. Again, you can do this to players, NPCs, whoever the heck you like. Maybe we'll just skip accompany with the kazoo. I don't know. It's dumb and lame and whatever. Let's move on, shall we? Dar prop handling. Basically, I just go through everybody's role with the performance. Burgle had a scene coming up, you know, a Valiant Knight given a task by the king. Basically, Burgle in this case was one of the background characters. You know, one of the servants tidying up, etc., etc. Dar made an insight check, and he rolled a nat 1. He gave the wrong props. Dar was almost attacked by an angry performer, but Burgle came to his defense. Hey, you know, don't you hear the crowd? They loved the scene. And, you know, maybe depending on how I put this might be a little backwards, but we have Burgle's bit. He was in a scene. Basically, I call this swashbuckling servant saves the day. He had advantage because Greta, the NPC, cheered him on. I rolled a 25. And then, yeah, swashbuckling servant saves the day. A knight is ordered to slay a dragon. Draws his sword, but it's a feather duster because of Darg's little mishap from a minute ago. Meanwhile, Burgle, a servant, pulled out a sword. You know, dragon slaying's in my blood. Allow me to slay the dragon. And then the party just rush off stage. Again, it's a weird little improv show. I don't know what else to come up with. You know, Dar was also on stage pushing a prop or 2 into place. This actually happened to me once during one of my high school performances. Basically, I was pushing, I forget what it was exactly, but the lights came on a bit early. So yeah, I had to run off stage. I love being a techie. Thank you, Casey. You got me in the lights on stage, even though I was also in the show as a background character. Right, enough memory lane. Let's move down to Kima's performance. Martial art martial arts performance with another student. Basically, this was just portrayed as a meeting of masters showcasing their techniques. You know, high kicks, low kicks, wah, etc. Chops. I'm not a martial artist. Please don't beat me up. She rolled a 9 on her performance, which was a failure. Yeah, Kima and Quindella, I'm saying like a half-elf girl, had practice, but Kima had some stage fright, and the two took a few minor hits. You know, like, nothing serious. Honestly, not even, like, notable for damage. But, you know, just like, oh, hey, like, Kima forgot to block a shot here, so she, you know, got cranked in the face, and she swept, you know, Quindella's leg once on accident. Because of the height difference thing, they didn't take that into account, even though they practiced over the week. You know, and like I said, stage fright can affect you. I don't think I have a story for that one, actually. Oddly enough, you'd think. But, moving forward to Sarah, sound check. Her wisdom insight fail was an 8. Basically, you know, on stage, a pair of characters are talking near a large window. Oh, isn't the weather so beautiful? You can really hear the birds chirping. Obviously prompting her to make bird sounds. Sarah accidentally hit the thunder sound. On stage, there was a small pause. Oh, drats, I forgot how quickly the weather can change. And then quickly a blue gel was placed in a light bathing stage in light blue. And then there was like some, you know, wavy texture somehow. I forget how light stuff works. I learned basics in theater in high school going on 20 years ago. But, yeah. So, you know, the stage crew were able to account for Sarah's little misstep. And, you know, I just quickly ran through one thing for everyone because that was all I could think of. You know, and again, this is just an outline to give you examples and ideas to draw from. Enter the Owlbear. Late in the show, a knight is chased on stage by an owlbear. You know, everyone make a perception check. In ascending order, apparently. Kima rolled a 5, Sarah rolled a 10, Burr rolled a 15, Darb rolled a 23. Darb and Sarah rush on stage, Burr and Kima are delayed by a turn. I guess I should have established where everyone was before this. I didn't take that into account when I made these rolls. But, I will have an explanation in the next couple slides. But, yeah, and really quick, that is an owlbear. It's basically got the body of a bear and the face of an owl. It had, well, I've got the stat block on the next page because there's some relevant information there. The big things to note, obviously, are armor class, AC 13, hit points, 59, or 70-10 plus 21. Initiative roll, you know, and then, for this case, the big thing was just the actions, the multi-attack. Makes 2 attacks, one with its beaks and 2 with its claws. You know, can do 10 damage with the beak, you know, or 1d10 plus 5. And then the claws were 2d8 plus 5, or 14, which I used the dice rolls for this because if I hadn't, I think it was Sarah that could have been felled just with a claw attack. Again, we're level 3, I think, at least 3. And, yeah. 14 HP, Tiefling Wizard. I didn't put points into Constitution, and I'm sorry for that. Stage combat. Again, just a quick, snappy little line. You know, Darb and Sarah, you know, looks to one another after, you know, the owlbear rushed on stage, and we're like, that's not part of the, oh, crap. And they rushed on stage. You know, burst through the curtain of, but really quick, before they burst onto the stage, you know, they look to Quintilius, and we're like, oh, this is our scene, but we need Burgle and Kima. We'll go out there, you know, and you just get them, like, right now. Again, trying to, you know, not cause chaos within the show. And yeah, so they rushed onto the stage. You know, burst of the curtain, rushed onto the stage. Quintillius went to find them, etc., etc. And the Owlbear, seeming confused and angry at the lights, looking ready to jump out into the crowd. The knight had jumped off the stage over the orchestra pits, basically into one of the aisles, and was still going. Some random NPC character. We'll call him Chad. But, you know, again, and, you know, the lights and stuff could be confusing to a normal beast-type creature, going from a dark backstage area to here. I could have done a bit more to build up the what the heck happened, and hopefully I do for the actual campaign. Like a little mini cutscene, basically just, oh hey, like, you know, the night dude is coming backstage, you know, just trying to find a private spot, and notices a cloaked figure, you know, looking at one of the props. You know, they do the bad stuff, and then the thing comes to life and chases them. That's it. I literally just thought of that, by the way. But anyway, I had some fun with this dialogue really quick. You know, Darb and Sarah just look out at the creature, go, Darb, in his best cool manly voice, stand down, beast, or face the wrath of the Green Guardian, and, you know, looking at Sarah for the right words, and she looked at him like, do not screw this up. Red Queen. The beast didn't seem to hear, so Sarah, having the bright idea of casting magic missile at the creature. This is an auto hit attack, 4 total hits for 15 damage. The Owlbear turned roaring at them. They had gotten its attention. Basically, my familiarity with beasts is if you attack them, they're definitely going to notice you and be pissed off. But, you know, Sarah said, kneel before the Red Queen and her wrath. Really quick, combat turn 1, and just for reference, I have, you know, the NPC or player character's name and then their HP to the right, as well as their actions in the combat, based on, you know, their initiative order and such. You know, again, this is just an outline just to show you I was being honest with all this stuff, and yeah. So, Beak attack and claw attack Sarah for a total of 27 damage. Sarah went down. She was the one who had instigated the violence, had pissed him off, etc., etc. So yeah, he went at her pretty hard. The Owlbear went at her pretty hard. Yeah, screw it. But in response, Sarah used Hellish Rebuke for 12 damage. Basically, when a Tiefling caster, stress that point, is attacked, they have a reaction called Hellish Rebuke. They do a certain amount of fire damage. I'm not going to put up the rules on this one. You guys just have to look it up yourselves. And I've stressed the caster point because I'd asked, like, what if they're playing a barbarian or a fighter? There gotta be more classes that don't have spells, but yeah, just... And people were like, no, they gotta use a spell slot for it. So, just saying, remember that if you make a Tiefling character. That you can make some classes that, you know, don't have magic, but, you know, hey, it's not a bad idea to have magic at your beck and call. Also, you are basically a demon, technically. Like, again, based on my limited knowledge. Let's move forward, though. Sarah, who took 12 damage, then 15 damage, was down to negative 13. She is down. And really quick, as it says there, 1 HP from, like, total death. Like, if you lose your HP, and then, like, you hit, in Sarah's case, negative 14, you are gone. Like, you are dead. There is no coming back from that with death saving throws or anything. Which is why it's important to keep track of health even if you are, like, in the negatives. But yeah, she had a death saving throw. She passed it. Basically, I just went with the cliche, you know, darkness and a crossroads. Like, you know, you hear, like, you see light at the end of one path, you know, to your right or left. And then in the other direction, you know, you hear the voices of your friends and family and loved ones and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, this is just you subconsciously making that choice is what I'm interpreting the death saving throw as. Again, any interpretations can vary from game to game. So maybe it's something different. Or, you gave me an idea for something cool. Like, you believe in Valhalla or something like that. Okay. Darb. Hit him with Booming Blade for 6 damage. Attack Action Surge, which is the second action. No issue. 1 per long rest, I believe. Action Surge, attack number 2 for 9 damage. DM note, Darb had advantage. Basically, it was a very emotional moment. At this point in the story, I was still going with the idea of maybe Darb and Sarah do become a couple. But also, seeing one of your friends fall in combat, and you're right there, it's going to cause something to snap inside you. The cliche thing of, Dr. Brown, getting shot in Back to the Future. Marty yelling, "You bastards!" Or, something like where a person just snaps emotionally. DM note number 2. Keeman Burgle and Professor Trotsky. Oops, I said Ronaldo Lang. She's probably somewhere else in the book. Page 215, stat block, are delayed until turn 2. Basically, Professor Trotsky is one of the professors of the school, obviously, and she was a major part of the event. So, yeah, she will act in this combat because seeing students attacked on stage, that's a big, oh crap, I could lose my job. Okay. Combat's turn number 2. The Owlbear attacked Darb 3 times. Missed him twice, hit him once. Basically, I think, tried poking at him with the beak, but Darb had his sword. Really quick, I forgot to establish this also. Darb took on the Eldritch Knight subclass, and one of their subclass features was, I believe it's weapon bonding, where basically he can summon his weapons to him. It takes a bonus action. He done it backstage before they came on stage. So yeah, the Owlbear, tried to smash his shield with its face. Well, tried to smash him with his face. Caught in the shield. Swiped at him. Darb ducked that attack. Secondary swipe, caught him, in the side. I'm just going to ignore that. I think it was a weather service thing. Sarah is on death saving throw number 2. And she passed again. Again, the voices of her friends and the chaos are more clear to her. And she's like, I have to go that way. Burgle gets on stage, sees Sarah and Darb, right near the curtain. Darb's, struggling to hold the beast back. He's like, save Sarah! Because, I don't know if you've ever fought a bear, but them pressing on you, not very easy to handle. Even though Darb is a half-orc, so he's a bigger guy, etc., etc. And, he gets her up, and it's just the cliche, whenever you wake up from dying thing, you're just like, crap, inhale too hard. And also, I've done that because I regenerated, because I did the Doctor Who bit. I forget when, but this is not about that. Kima came on stage. Basically, let's say she ran, saw Darb's back to the stage, did a cool lift off of his back, so bounce off, and attacked with her quarterstaff, and also used her racial ability Fury of the Small, giving her +3 damage, so 8 total damage. Then she tried for Flurry of Blows. Basically gives her 2 more attacks. As long as she did an unarmed attack or a simple martial attack, I believe it is. I forget exactly. But yeah, she unfortunately missed. Both times. Or maybe, her hands just hit the fur and it was too fluffy and didn't make an impact. Again, however you want to paint that picture. Then it was Professor Trotsky's turn. She used a move called Ink Lance. Basically, I forget which school she's with, but, imagine just casting, magic, with the hand thing, and then ink comes out and hits whatever. 30 damage against 9 HP. The creature fell over, quote-unquote, dead, back into its prop form. You know, show's over. Professor Trotsky called that the show was in fact over. You know, she sent off the other performers and focused on the party. You know, Mr. Quintilius, you know, gathered the other crew backstage and such, and please escort them out of the theater. I believe the show is over. You know, and then using thaumaturgy to talk to the crowd at large. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the show is over for the evening. Thank you for attending and taking part. So we appreciate all that you've done here, etc., etc. Basically doing the nice cover-up thing for what had actually happened, where a student basically died on stage, literally. Because one of the plot points that is going to come up, unfortunately, only a little bit in year 2, because it was something I made up, was, you know, school attendance is being affected by this, because dying doesn't seem very appealing, even for a magic college where you can be brought back from the dead. Which, looking back, looking at other stuff makes me go, huh. But, that's for another time. You know, she looked at the party, to my office, now. Sarah walked over to the Owlbear to find more black sludge. She scraped it off into a container. And then, you know, being very pissed off, cast a fire spell on the thing. I think it was fireballs or something. I didn't have a roll for it. You just blast the thing, so, you know, you have that dramatic moment of, you know, like, I'll see you in hell or something. Burn the prop. Stare at it for a couple seconds. You know, Professor just looking at her annoyed, and then dousing the flames with magic water. Create water. I forgot how that works, but I know it's supposed to be in a container, but whatever. Magic school. Let me have this. Moving on to Professor Trotsky's office. Basically, you know, they're led off the stage. They follow her off the stage, rather, to her office to talk about this. First off, obviously, is everyone all right? You know, Darb, you know, had some scrapes, but Burgle, you know, did some cure wounds for him and Sarah, so they were better. Kima hadn't been hit. She was a bit surprised at having fought an Owlbear and was kind of writing that excitement, like, oh my gosh, yeah, that was so cool. But also a bit annoyed that she didn't really hurt it besides that first attack. You know, Darb was shaken, obviously. And Sarah was just, she was a bit quiet. Didn't really say much. You know, definitely had that, like, 1,000-yard stare PTSD moment of just, I almost died. May I see the sample? Professor Trotsky and, you know, had noticed Sarah taking the sample off of the Owlbear prop. You know, and the others were a bit defensive about this. You know, Dar was concerned and, like, his hand inched toward his sword. You know, Burgle and Kima weren't exactly sure what to do, but Sarah was just staring, you know, just focused back on her, like she was back in it. Like, wait, what do you know about that? You know, same material as the other instances, and it, again, gave some people some pause and blah, blah, blah. You know, right, I've been working with Professor Veralda Lang, the other professor that I misnamed here, whoops, and know about your involvement in the undercover case. I hope the air quotes were like hearable. Yeah. You know, Dar believed, Burgle looked shocked, Kima was confused, Sarah was calm and collected. You know, Darb's hand, you know, just went back to, you know, his knees and just, cool. I don't have to fight a teacher today after I just got my butt kicked by an owlbear. You know, Burgle was like, wait, what? Like, crap. Because Kima's confused. She's like, because she hasn't been in on the case as much, so blah, 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 whatever. Sarah, again, cool, calm, cucumber, old girl type stuff. Kind of regretting those words now. You know, so what do we do now? You know, and basically Professor Trotsky already had some, let's be honest here, BS lined up. You know, the official statement is the break gone awry, the perpetrators are unknown, and there will be no discussion outside of this room. Are we clear? Like, basically, keep your trap shut on this one, or you are going to be buried in schoolwork and other crap. I will make sure of that. Because again, trying to avoid a panic on a larger campus. And the party, agreed. Like, Darb, obviously, like, yeah, oh, sure. Burgle again. Buying a bit of peer pressure and intimidation. Yes, of course. Yeah, no, I don't even remember the incident, to be honest with you. Kima wanted to, like, sass back, but then thought better of it, was like, nah. And Sarah was just calm and stoic still, just, like, nodded. And then, basically, the cloak of protection, +1 AC, was given to Sarah, because she'd been clawed and, it had cut through her shirt, wizard robes, whatever. God, I'm trying to remember, from one of the Star Wars movies, basically just the, oh hey, cut your midriff. So, not higher up, so it's risque, but, low enough where it's like, oh no, like, my shirt's ripped and I'm hurt badly. But also, you don't have organs spilling out, because this is, I'm trying to be PG, maybe PG-13 with the campaign. Only a couple slides left. At this point, this is just extra content, so for those who are just looking for the outline, I'm done. I will have final thoughts after this. I just wrote this. I'm a writer. Let me have this. Basically, this was, comforting Sarah after the attack. This was her first time. This was her first time, or anyone's first time, being so close to death. They leave Professor Trotsky's office. They walk down, a couple of hallways back towards the dorm, and at one point, Sarah's, calm, cool, collected facade just breaks. She's just like, I could have died. When, she just wraps her arms around Darb and just cries into his shoulder. When she's like, I don't want to be alone, guys. I'm really messed up and scared, and don't leave me alone tonight. So everyone stays at Sarah's dorm that night. Sarah can't sleep that night because, she's pretty messed up from all this. And neither can Darb, so they sneak out to talk. Basically, they quietly sneak out of the dorm, and find, a place, in a quiet little park area where they can just sit and talk. Darb is messed up by this because he's the front line guy. It should have been him who got mauled and attacked and was near death. And he's beating himself up about that. And he's apologizing to Sarah, like, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I should have done better. I should have gotten in there. I should have protected you. Well, Sarah, will say, it's not your fault, etc., etc. I'm shaken by this, but I'm not going to walk away. Her primary goal has been, and by the end of this campaign, will be, seeking revenge against the warlock that had sacrificed her loved ones. Originally, I'd said, like, her entire village. At this point, I'm going to say it was just her parents were taken. They lived on the outskirts of society. They were taken by the villain. And yeah, spoilers for end of year 4, it's going to be Mergaxer, the bad guy of this campaign. Just to make everything in a nice little bow, because I have a nice little ending. But we'll get there when we get there. She knows it was going to be a hard path. So standing up to crap like this is what you got to do. After this, Darb will start learning barbarian techniques. Like he'll take levels in that class. And one of my regrets, now that I'm done with the campaign, is I didn't start Darb at level 1 barbarian, have him learn some fighter things, and then have that inner conflict of, am I a fighter? Am I a barbarian? What do I want to do? And like, yeah, I mean, the Eldritch Knight subclass thing worked for last session, so I don't regret that. But if there was a way I could have worked it in, so it worked for both. As for Sarah, she will change her subclass from the School of Evocation to the Bladesinger subclass. Better at handling close combat is her interpretation. Basically, I don't know a whole lot about the subclass. Unfortunately, it doesn't come up as being very much for Sarah in this campaign. But they have, a few things. They know some sword play. They can wear, I believe it's light armor, like light leather or something like that. I forget what it is exactly. But one of the big things they have is blade singing. Their ability to, I'm going to say, dance or move, that increases their movement by 10 feet, gives them advantage on, I believe, dexterity checks, as well as advantage on DC checks for concentration for maintaining spells. That is an important thing. That comes up definitely later, and I forget the rules for concentration, but just know that it's important. But, the two hug, and they return to Sarah's apartment quietly, around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and go to sleep, now that their consciences are a bit more clear. Next morning, Burgle and Kima woke up and made pancakes. I don't know why it's weird, but, they made pancakes for it because obviously they had a rough day the night before. They wanted to do something good for everybody. They tried to get Darb to help out, but he was very out of it, and also the fact that he'd gotten his body hurt. Burgle was like, maybe we should just leave him be. Or, maybe he noticed, oh hey, he's got like snow or something on his boots, and so does Sarah, so maybe they needed some time. Like we'll just say Burgle in this case is an empath, or Kima notices something too and just goes, we should let them sleep. We'll take care of pancakes and stuff, and it'll be a good morning. Also, really quick, the show was on a Saturday, so they don't have class or anything that next day. But yeah, and then just another nice little scene. No news is good news. Grayson working at the Strixhaven Star. He's higher up in the chain for the newspaper at this point, and basically somebody brings in a story about like Owlbear attack, blah blah blah. Like one of the conspiracy guys, let's just say. And, he looks over the article, thinks it's interesting, notes, the involvement of Darb, Sarah, Burgle, and Kima, and is like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And just, crumples that up and throws it in the trash, just dismissing the article. And he just leans back in his, cliche press chair, like, I can't believe I'm covering for those guys. But again, he knows them and trusts them, etc., etc. And this is kind of building off of, I forget what session it was. It had to be like 5 or 6. The Deathwing Manor thing. We're like, hey, I gave them trouble, but I see they're also doing good, so I don't want to mess with them. Also, Sarah threatened me with magic, so yeah, maybe I should be smart. Moving on to, just final thoughts. I'll be honest with you, I almost skipped the session, and I'm glad I didn't. I had fun running the scenes, and the mishaps along the way, as well as Sarah's bit with coming close to death. It was tough. Like, I was shaken by that attack, or series of attacks, and I had to take a couple days off from, recording that, like, writing up that session. But I'm glad I got through it. Because one of the tough things that you're going to have to face as a DM is potential character death. And having gotten through the entire campaign, I'm learning now that, like, in the future, if a certain character dies, they could have been brought back with the Revive Dead spell. It's an NPC that you unfortunately fight at some point, and yeah. So obviously that can be applied to here as well. I'm glad I didn't have to explore that path or try and come up with some BS reason for, oh hey, a new person comes in to take Sarah's place. I mean, like I showed, like, these guys are traumatized by that, and it would have been hard to bring somebody else into that, you know? And then really quick, like I said before, if you want an alternative version of the session, which I will try and establish these for as I can, because I forgot to do this for a bunch of them apparently. But alternative version could be checking the stage the night before, though it means you're on your own. So if the Owlbear comes to life and attacks you, there is no Professor Trotsky to save you. It is you versus it. But that could be a cool, thing to explore. A person might have been setting up the night before for that. And with my knowledge of year 3 stuff, maybe there's like a glyph of warding or something on the Owlbear that set it off, rather than person applied the stuff and yada yada. Pink mouse. Because last slide is kind of important. Alright, for more content. I'm presuming you found this either on YouTube or the Spotify, but youtube.com/hero1922. I do have a couple of series in the books already. I've got the Strixhaven campaign, obviously. I've got the Emerald Vanguard campaign. I was a player and a recap sessions for that. My biggest, my favorite piece is definitely the final episode, Checkmate. Because that I wrote by myself, and I showed Connor all of my notes and he approved of it, because we had to cut the campaign short, unfortunately. Also, as you note there, I am on Spotify. Basically, if you search Brad the DM, you will see, at least currently, January 2026, the first 2 or 3 episodes of the campaign, of this campaign. You can watch it in the video format, you can listen to it in the audio format. I'm basically doing that for myself, because, well, number one, just to get it more out there in the universe, but also, I like to listen to podcasts in the mornings at work when I'm doing stuff. And I've gone back and I've listened to some of my old stuff, like the Emerald Vanguard stuff. Unfortunately, that being on YouTube, it's not as easy as listening to it on Spotify. Because, you got video and drains your battery a bit faster. There's a third thing that I do want to add. If you are interested in playing with Brad the DM, currently the Strixhaven campaign, your own version of it tailored to you and your party, let me know. Comment below, comment on the Spotify, etc., etc. Maybe we can coordinate something. That would be cool. Yeah, also really quick, if you're hearing my mom's voice, I'm going to apologize for that. Doesn't know that I'm doing the stuff down here, and I haven't really figured soundproofing stuff out yet. But apparently need to work on that. This is the play test. And again, improv, you gotta roll with the punches of people being above you and talking. But hopefully you don't hear that, and hopefully you can just write this off. I'll know when I edit this. But, yeah. If, you listen to this entire episode, or this entire podcast episode, thank you. I appreciate it a lot. It's hard to get the motivation to do this stuff if you don't have fans saying nice things. So if you guys could comment or say this is interesting or something, I would appreciate it. I'm still going to try and do this, even if it is just for me. But, any love and support from, the fan base would be appreciated. And that's it, because the next slide is nothing. And it just goes back to, click the regular presentation. So yeah, thank you everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode, session I mean. The next session is going to be fun and interesting. Because I believe, if I got this right, it is Under the Sedgemoor. An episode that I made up entirely myself for this campaign. Based on some of my homebrew stuff. I'm just trying to wrap this up because I keep hearing her pretty loud. And I'm just getting annoyed. But yeah, so look forward to that episode as soon as I get the presentation and everything done. I'm going to try and work on transitions and stuff as best I can, yada yada yada. Yeah, if you want to follow me, comment below, feel free. I would appreciate it, like I said. And if you want to take part in a campaign, I can at least run this campaign for you right now. You know, it's got rails, so it's definitely good for newer players. But also, I think veterans might just enjoy, you know, hey, exploring the school setting. And also, the more stuff that you put into the campaign, that's more that I have to work with, so I can better tailor it to your interests and needs. And unlike if you're interested, we can talk about that at some other point. But yeah. So that's it, everyone. Until next time, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, and of course remember, every character, every DM, every player has a story to tell. I'm Valiant Bradley James. Brad the DM. I forgot what the sign off is. Peace.